The forest moon of Tessari 9 was always quiet just before the suns rose, too quiet for Kale's liking. That particular dawn, as he moved silently among dew-heavy ferns with a rusted forge blade at his hip, the silence felt like a held breath. Birds weren't calling. Insects weren't humming. Even the wind, usually eager to whistle through the tall, fire-leaf trees, had disappeared. Kale crouched by a low ridge, peering into a clearing that shouldn't have been there. He'd hunted these parts since childhood, knew every rock and root like the back of his own weathered hands. But this hollow, perfectly round and eerily still, hadn't existed yesterday. The ground was charred, trees splintered like bone. Something massive had torn through here, and recently. He should have turned back. Logic insisted, but logic rarely won against curiosity in Kale's life, and today was no different. He descended the ridge with careful steps, one hand on the grip of his blade. The smell hit him before he saw the body. Metal, singed fur, and something stranger, like ozone soaked in old blood. In the middle of the clearing lay a creature, immense and unmoving. Even sprawled and wounded, it dominated the space like a mountain would a valley. White fur shimmered faintly in the filtered dawnlight. Its body was feline in shape, but impossibly scaled. Muscles like woven steel cables, limbs as thick as tree trunks, and eyes. Its eyes opened. Twin orbs of green light, ethereal and deep as nebulae, stared directly at him. Kale froze. Every instinct screamed, run. But the creature didn't move. It just stared, and behind that gaze, Kale saw pain. Not the primal panic of an injured beast, but a deep, exhausted ache. Something in that look stopped him from retreating. He took one step forward, then another. His breath was shallow, his skin cold. The blade on his hip now felt laughably small. But the creature didn't growl or rise. It only watched, 20 feet away now. He could hear its breathing, slow, labored. Blood, black and thick, pooled beneath its flank, seeping into the moss. "You're dying," Kale whispered, as though saying it aloud might change the truth of it. Its ears twitched at the sound of his voice. Not hostile, attentive. It was listening. From the small satchel slung across his back, Kale pulled out what little food he had. Dried grain cakes, a strip of smoked root meat, and a dented canteen. Pathetic offerings in the face of a dying legend. But still, he placed them on a flat stone, slid it forward with the tip of his blade, and backed away slowly. The creature didn't move for a long moment. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, it extended its neck. A massive paw dragged forward with surprising gentleness, claws retracting so as not to break the stone. It sniffed the food, eyes flicking once to Kale, then back. It ate. Kale exhaled for the first time in what felt like minutes. He sat, legs crossed, hands still trembling, and watched it consume the offering. The act felt like ritual, like something ancient being enacted again after centuries of silence. He didn't speak, didn't move, just observed. Occasionally, the beast would glance at him between bites. Not predator to prey, but something more. A recognition, as if he had passed some unseen test. When it finished, it lay its head down again, closer to him this time. The air around them remained still, but the tension had shifted. The fear hadn't gone. It had been replaced by reverence. Valkyra, Kale whispered, naming it not for knowledge, but instinct. The name pulsed in his chest like a drumbeat. Stories flooded back, of a white beast that had once raised the spire cities of the Arcadium Empire. A being made not of fur and flesh, but something older. A protector turned executioner, once betrayed and never tamed. But those stories always ended with fire and death. Not this. Kale remained beside it for hours. He didn't speak again. The suns rose higher, light filtering through the trees in golden shafts. The creature slept, or seemed to. Its breathing steadied. At some point, he dozed off too, dreams tangled with images of stars, warships, and a voice like thunder calling him by name. When he awoke, the sun had shifted, and the beast was gone. Panic struck hard and fast. He looked around, half expecting to find his body pierced by claw or fawn. But there was no sign, no blood, no sound. Only the cleared stone where the food had been and the crushed underbrush leading back into the forest. He should have left then. He should have gone back to camp, packed his things, left the moon if he had to. But instead, he found himself returning to the same clearing that night, then again the next day. He brought more food, more water. He waited. On the third evening, she returned. He hadn't known for sure if the beast was female. Now he did. Something in her presence spoke of ancient grace, wounded but proud. She emerged not from the trees, but from the shadows themselves, silent and immense. And again, she sat before him, eyes glowing in the dark. No words passed between them. None were needed. Over the days that followed, a rhythm formed. He would come at dusk, bringing food and quiet company. She would appear, silent as death, yet never threatening. They sat. They listened to the forest. They watched the stars blink into view. She began to follow him. At first, just at a distance, silent footfalls through the underbrush, green eyes watching from the dark. Then closer. Days passed with her shadow lingering only feet away. Animals fled. Other scavengers abandoned the region entirely. Kale, once invisible and forgettable, now walked with death beside him. And he didn't feel afraid. That, more than anything, terrified him. He named her aloud once. Valkyra. She didn't flinch. The name settled on her like a forgotten crown. He began talking. Rambling, really. Stories of his childhood, lost friends, the way his father taught him to hunt by moonlight. She listened, or at least didn't leave. Sometimes her ears flicked at the sound of certain names. He started to suspect she understood far more than he could ever guess. Then came the men. He'd sensed them before he saw them. Movement in the canopy, glints of metal. Mercenaries. Their weapons weren't standard issue. These were professionals. Not soldiers. Hunters. They didn't speak when they stepped into the clearing. Just raised their rifles, aimed them squarely at Valkyra. She didn't move. Kale did. Stop, he shouted, stepping in front of her, arms raised. She's not attacking. She's a Class Omega bio threat, one barked. Step aside, citizen. She's not what you think, Kale insisted. She's wounded. She hasn't hurt anyone. Yet the man said, then added, almost with pity, don't make this harder. He didn't. He stood still. But Valkyra did move then, just slightly. She stood, slow and deliberate, towering over them all. Her eyes glowed, but there was no growl, no lunge. And then something strange happened. Their weapons froze. Literally. Ice crept up from the barrels, frost blooming across metal. The men screamed as the cold spread, fingers locking around useless triggers. Kale turned, stunned. Valkyra stood still, but the air around her shimmered, distorted like heat, but freezing. She didn't attack. She waited. The mercenaries ran. Two dropped their weapons. One left the SATCOM unit still transmitting. Kale picked it up. On the other end, voices. A lot of them. Governmental, military, criminal. Everyone wanted Valkyra. He dropped the device into the nearby stream and watched it sink. Later, the forest no longer whispered in fear. It murmured in awe. Kale moved through the undergrowth like a shadow. Valkyra, pacing behind him, silent as breath. They had traveled far from the ruined clearing where they had first met. Now, deeper into the black pine valleys, farther than any scout dared venture. They hunted not for prey, but for time. Time before the hunters returned. In the days that followed the failed mercenary ambush, rumors spread like spores through the outer colonies. The beast of Tessari had been spotted, fed by a lone drifter, defended by him. Words like tamer, symbiotic, and asset began floating in transmissions. Kale didn't have to listen to the intercepted broadcast to know what they were saying. He was no longer just a wanderer. He was the one standing between a galaxy and its myth. One night, under a bruised moon, Kale stirred a fire in a shallow cave. Valkyra lay curled at the entrance, her pale fur glowing silver, eyes closed. Yet he knew she wasn't asleep. She never truly was. Every muscle remained primed, every breath deliberate. She didn't rest. She waited. A low chirp crackled from a device Kale had salvaged. One of the mercenaries' comms, rewired to pick up coded chatter. Most was junk. But this message stopped him cold. Primary extraction team en route. Biosignature confirmed. Valkyra is moving east. Engage only under direct command. They knew, not just where they were headed, but who she was. What she was. Kale stared into the fire, heat licking his face. For the first time, he wondered if he'd made a mistake not letting her go. But the next morning, as they passed through the whispering rock fields of the Shard Valley, she brushed her flank against his side. A deliberate touch. She could have left at any time. Her steps were soundless, her strength vast. Yet still she followed. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was loyalty. Still, loyalty would not save them from what was coming. On the 5th day, they reached an ancient ruin, Oblivion's Watch, a long-fallen observatory crumbling beneath moss and time. Kel had been here once, years ago. It had been lifeless then. Now lights flickered inside. He crouched at the edge of the clearing, watching. 3 figures. One working a console, another pacing, helmet tucked beneath an arm. The third, unmoving, staring out into the dark. Scouts, Kale whispered. Or worse. Valkyra crouched beside him, every sinew pulled taut. He could feel her tension like heat through the soil. She knew these shapes. She had smelled them before. The unmoving one turned slowly. Even from this distance, Kale could see the glint of cybernetics where the face should have been. A commander. We can't go around them, he murmured. They're expecting us. Valkyra didn't move. Then, slowly, she rose. Kale grabbed her forelimb. Not to stop her, but out of desperation. Wait, not yet. We don't know what they want. She looked at him, and for the first time since they met, Kale saw something in her eyes that chilled him. Permission. She was asking. No blood unless they draw it, he said quietly. We move together. She nodded, or the closest thing to it. A subtle dip of the massive head. Then they stepped into the clearing. The reaction was immediate. Weapons drawn. Shouts. Someone activated a beacon that shot a flare of red light into the sky. The cybernetic commander raised a hand. Kale Marin. The voice was amplified, mechanical. And Valkyra, the scourge of Sithra. You're both requested for immediate containment. Do not resist. Kale stepped forward, palms up. We haven't harmed anyone. We've avoided conflict. The commander's head tilted slightly. Avoided? You disabled 6 agents with cryogenic pressure. You destroyed 2 drones. You're harboring a creature with the capability to destabilize planetary ecosystems. She's not a weapon. That's not your call. Kale's fingers twitched toward his satchel. Inside the blade. Inside the old data stick. Inside, all the reasons he should have left this moon weeks ago. But Valkyra moved first. Not with violence, but still with power. She walked past him, slow and deliberate, and sat at his side like a statue of vengeance carved from starlight. She chooses to stay with me, Kale said. That means something. The commander didn't reply immediately. Then, you misunderstand. This isn't a matter of choice. This is regulation. Valkyra's existence violates 3 intergalactic compacts. Her presence destabilizes trade routes. Her DNA is classified as a Category 1 strategic anomaly. She doesn't belong to anyone, especially not to you. Kale's jaw tightened. She doesn't belong to anyone, he agreed. That's why she stays. The commander lowered his arm. Then you're complicit. Kale moved before the first shot was fired. He tackled the pacing soldier as Valkyra surged forward, a blur of light and fury. Kale didn't see everything, just flashes. A weapon thrown. A scream cut short, metal crumpling like paper. When it was over, 3 bodies lay still. Kale stood in the center, heart pounding. Smoke from a cracked power cell hissed in the grass. Valkyra stood over the commander's shattered form, breathing heavy, blood flecked along her flank. He approached slowly. Are you hurt? She didn't answer, just looked at him with those gleaming eyes. We can't stay, he said. They'll be tracking that beacon. She turned her head toward the forest. A sound echoed far in the distance. Engines. Dozens. They ran. That night, they didn't stop until they reached the Edge Grove, a cliffside forest veined with bioluminescent vines and mist. Kale collapsed beneath a twisted tree, lungs burning. Valkyra lay beside him, not out of exhaustion, but solidarity. "Why me?" he asked aloud, voice rasped. "Why not someone stronger? Smarter?" She didn't move. He sat up, looking at her. "I'm nothing. Just a scavenger. A drifter. You could have crushed me that first day. Still nothing. Was it the food?" A long pause. Then, impossibly, she made a sound. A deep, low pulse that wasn't quite growl. It vibrated through the roots, settled into his bones. He didn't know what it meant, but he felt it. She had chosen him not because he was strong, but because he had seen her pain and didn't flinch. He leaned back against the tree, eyes toward the stars. They wouldn't stop hunting her. The bounty was too large, the fear too old. But for the first time, Cale stopped worrying about escape. He started thinking about resistance. She wasn't his beast. She was his ally. And the galaxy would soon learn what it meant to be chosen by Valkyra. Rain fell on the iron soil of Baldus Ridge, thin and acidic, eating into the crevices of Cale's makeshift shelter. The tarp hissed where droplets struck, a quiet warning from the sky itself. It had been 5 days since the last ambush, 3 since the coded pulse that confirmed Valkyra's bounty had been doubled. The galaxy wasn't just hunting her now. They were racing each other to be the ones who caged the impossible. Cale sat cross-legged beside a slowly dying fire, blade across his knees. His eyes were rimmed with exhaustion, but they never drifted. Across from him, Valkyra watched the flames. Her white coat was streaked with dried blood and soot, but her posture remained regal, composed. She had taken a hit 2 nights ago, grazing plasma across her side, but hadn't slowed. Not for a moment. It was Cale who had faltered, knees giving way from the sheer weight of their pursuit. He had always been alone before her. It was easier that way. No bonds to protect, no hearts to break. But now, every breath he took felt tethered to something larger, an instinct no longer just his own. "You know this doesn't end until we make it," he said quietly. Valkyra blinked once, slowly. Not run, not survive. Make it. A sharp rustle interrupted them. Cale's hand flew to his sidearm, but Valkyra had already risen, every fiber of her body pulled taut. No growl, no movement, just stillness honed into a blade. Then a voice, soft, familiar. "Cale." He stepped out from the shadow of the tarp, heart thudding. A silhouette emerged through the gray mist, tall, armored, with the insignia of a fallen alliance across the shoulder plate. "Captain Lyra Thorne," Cale breathed. She removed her helmet, revealing short, wind-whipped hair and tired eyes that once knew him better than anyone. "You look worse than I imagined," she said, voice gentler than he remembered. "You came for the bounty?" "No," she said. "I came for you." Behind Cale, Valkyra growled, not out of aggression, but caution. She had no history with Lyra, only Cale's body language to judge from, and his shoulders were stiff. "She doesn't trust easily," Cale said. "Neither do I," Lyra replied. "Not anymore." He hesitated. "How did you find me?" Lyra stepped forward. "Because I taught you everything you know about hiding. And because someone leaked a surveillance drone log from Tessari 6. You were never subtle." Cale exhaled. He remembered now. The one drone Valkyra hadn't destroyed, the one he thought had malfunctioned mid-flight. "A mistake. We're not going back," he said. "I know. Then what do you want?" She looked at Valkyra. "To help. Before it's too late." Cale narrowed his eyes. "You still work for them?" "I work for what's left of a dream. Not the council. Not the contractors. Just people who remember what mercy looks like." The word mercy rang in his ears. It had always been a weakness to his enemies. Now it was the reason he was still breathing. "Then prove it," he said. "Help us disappear." Lyra shook her head. "There's nowhere left to disappear to. The galaxy has changed. You can either run until you die, or make them see her for what she really is." Valkyra stepped forward, slow, deliberate. Her eyes met Lyra's. The captain didn't flinch. "She's sentient," Lyra said. "I read the old files, the ones the council erased. They called her kind apex relics, evolutionary artifacts. But one entry remained, a note scrawled in the margin of a field report. She mourns her dead. Cale felt his throat tighten. "I believe you," Lyra continued. "But the galaxy doesn't. Not yet. Then what do? There's a broadcast tower 2 ridges north, abandoned but functional. If we can get there, we can send a direct signal to the core archives. Unfiltered. Truth. They'll trace it. They'll hear her first. Kale turned to Valkyra. She was silent. Watching. Always watching. Then, without sound, she stepped forward and touched her forehead to Lyra's chest. Permission. Kale swallowed. Then we move. The journey to the tower was relentless. Acid mist, unstable terrain, and distant drone echoes shadowed every step. Valkyra led them through natural tunnels carved by ancient lava flows. Lyra followed with practiced quiet. Kale kept the rear, eyes darting, heart pacing every footfall. On the final ascent, a sentinel drone appeared, a spiked orb of glass and flame, programmed to disintegrate anything with unauthorized DNA. Kale raised his rifle, but Valkyra was faster. She leapt, not to destroy, but to shield. She took the burst full force and crashed to the ridge below. No! Kale shouted, sliding down after her. The smoke cleared. She was alive, barely, ribs heaving, for scorched. Hold on, he whispered, kneeling beside her. Please, just hold on. Lyra sprinted to them, pulling out a vial of Regan's serum, pressing it into Valkyra's wound. It's not made for her biology, she said, but it'll stabilize her long enough. Kale didn't move. He just held her head in his hands. I need you, he whispered. And for the first time in days, Valkyra made a sound, a soft, hollow purr. A sound not of strength, but of comfort. She was still with him. They reached the tower by dusk. It rose like a broken finger into the bruised sky, cables coiled like veins. Kale helped Valkyra inside. Lyra worked the terminal, fingers flying, bypassing firewall after firewall. Ready, she said at last. Kale stood before the terminal. Valkyra sat beside him. Whatever happens, he said, thank you. Lyra pressed record. Kale took a breath. My name is Kale Marin. What I'm about to say will be denied by every governing body from here to Solstice Prime. But it's the truth. Valkyra is not a beast. She is not a weapon. She is a sentient being who chose not to kill me, who protected me, who mourns her fallen. You've hunted her. You've feared her. But you've never asked why she runs. It's because of you. All of you. He turned to Valkyra. She doesn't need your cages. She needs your understanding. He stopped the transmission. Lyra hit send. Then, the tower lit up like a torch. They came fast. Hundreds of ships, patrols, automated weapons. But the message was already out. As Kale stood beside Valkyra, hand resting gently against her flank, he knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. She had been the galaxy's deadliest secret. Now, she was its greatest revelation.